Welcome, everyone, to the 10th episode of the Untitled Nic Cage Show.
Double digis.
We are almost to our 1 year anniversary, Rachel.
Is that true? Oh, I guess you're right, because it would be 12 episodes. Mm-hmm. Holy shit, what are we going to do? It's like, what, paper? Is that anniversary?
So, like,
we're going to send each other Nic Cage origami? Like,
because, like, next week, we've already talked about it. We'll talk about play later, too, is the new movie, Unbearable Weight.
Yes,
and then
can't wait.
On calendar is The Boy in Blue, which I have not seen.
Oh, me neither. I don't even think I've heard of it, aside from just, like, in passing when you've been putting together the list. I don't know what it's about. I don't know anything about it. Yeah,
so there's like part of me that's like, do we like jump to one later on for a special 1 year? Like, do we do Snake Eyes or like City of Angels or something? Or
I see what you're saying. That's a very good question. I'm not really sure. My only fear is we're going to use up all the good ones if we keep finding.
I know. We keep going through like Racing with the Moon and Cotton Club, and then it's like, But yes, so we are doing Birdy. First viewing for me, first viewing for you, correct?
You know, I think I saw this years and years and years ago, but I didn't remember a single thing about it, except for I knew it was a name, and I knew that it had something to do with like PTSD. That's like it.
Yeah, I did not know anything. I did see that it was a what's it called? That it was going to be a art house film, and my art house filmography is very restricted to like modern art house movies. So this was interesting, but we have some stuff to get to before we get to that.
Yes.
What has been new with you since we last recorded?
What have I been up to? Well, I did take a little girls trip, which was a little bit of a mixed bag. Like, it was very, very, very fun. I had a great time. We rented this house in Folsom, California, which if you've heard of Folsom, it's probably because of
Johnny
Folsom
Cash.
Prison. Yes, Johnny Cash. Exactly. Like, there's Johnny Cash stuff everywhere there. And so it's kind of like a historic town. There's like a really cute historic downtown that we stayed in, and we rented this house that was really cute. It was like this 1930s craftsman that they had fixed up, and it had an amazing pool. Like, it had a waterfall.
And you're a big pool person.
I am a big pool person. If I can
you and Devin would get along. I don't like going into pools.
Really, if I can get my body in a body of water, like, there's no stopping me. I'm like, I will Kool-Aid man through everything till I get my body in that body of water. So, so yeah, that was great. And it was like heated, so it was like 80 degrees the whole time in the pool. It was amazing. And they had like a gas fire pit, and we did like a whole thing. It was really cool, really relaxing. The problem was when you set foot outside of that.
You mentioned you came across some Ohio people.
Oh yeah, some Ohio vibes for sure. So like, okay, so we went to the store and like got a bunch of stuff because I was gonna make like a nice like cheese and meat plate because I'm. Kind of
course,
thing.
I do the same thing. That is my new go-to, so I understand.
Of course, I will be. We will have to break out the charcuterie in
some gabagool.
Yes, gabagool for sure. But so we went to Sprouts, which is kind of like a Whole Foodsy kind of place. So it's a little hippy dippy. I love Sprouts. We have them here locally. And I was looking for the olives, and there was like a nice lady who was like, "I love your dress." You know, like, we were vibing, having a nice time. And except for this one very strange interaction. And this was like my first sort of like bellwether interaction, where she was like, "Oh, I love your outfit. You're so sunny and bright. We need color in these dark times. You know, this is a really nice town. You should go here. You should go there. This is a sheriff's town. You're really going to love it. I hope you have a great time." And I was like, okay, that was fucking weird.
A sheriff's town?
Yes. A sheriff's
What's that
town.
mean?
Apparently what it means is like, it's very copy and very Blue Lives Matter vibes. Like, to the point where there's like the businesses have Blue Lives Matter flags flying out in front of all of them.
Okay.
And they do not take kindly to people coming into their places of business wearing a mask, despite the fact that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. I experienced my first sort of like anti-mask discrimination.
We were messing about this in Discord a little bit, and that's like one thing, like, because obviously we were talking and we were like, making plans for the trip and everything, and like I definitely have different feelings about it than you. But if someone wants to wear a mask, I do not.
I'm not sure
care.
what the problem is.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, what is the issue? Like, I that is like one thing I just don't. Because I think I told you before, like Devin's mom one time, was giving Devin and I crap because we went to a concert. It was a smaller venue, but we wore our mask while we were inside. Mm-hmm. And her mom was like harassing us, like, Taffy, like, this was like way still in the pandemic times. And, well, we're still in it, but like, I'm talking like last year, like before Omicron and everything. And it's like, we aren't giving you crap. Like, why are you harassing us? Like,
I don't know what it is.
Do you?
It like really bothers people. Like,
it
we
does.
got
It's
turned
so
away essentially at a restaurant. Like, we came in and we're like, oh, we'd like to, get a table on the patio, which by the way, we had seen was empty except for one table. Like, all the other tables were open. And she looked back at you could see through the window, the open table. She said, we don't have any open tables. We'll have to call you.
Shut up.
They turned us away from the waffle experience.
That is so, I just do
it
not
was
get it.
wild. And then there was like another place we went and bought some wine, and they were like, you don't need to wear those masks. They're optional. And we're like, well, we opt to leave them on. And they were not nice to us. I mean, I got my wine, but yeah, it was
weird.
It was a very strange experience because it's only like 2 hours away from where I live, where everybody still has masks on. Mm-hmm. So it was just, I guess it's just different in a sheriff's town,
Yeah.
It was a lot. I learned a new flag I didn't know existed.
Which one's
that?
This
one where like Matilda was one of the people who went with me, and she described it. We were trying to figure out what it meant. She's like, does that mean that Blue Lives Matter in like a reggae kind of way? Because it was like all of the reggae colors. But apparently what it is it's because it was red, green and blue, I think.
So
and
firefighters,
yes,
policemen, and EMT.
Forestry. Apparently.
Forestry. Okay.
Yep. So I learned new things.
Yeah, I've seen the red line ones around here. Again, yes,
yeah. So it's weird. It's very strange because the 3 vacations I've taken since like we've been venturing out were to Southern Oregon, which I'm very proud of you, by the way. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Which is like deep, like deep Trump country. Like every
Oregon
is Southern Oregon. Well, I mean, Oregon has a history, so Portland is incredibly progressive. It's why there are so many like Proud Boys starting riots there and shit. But the rest of Oregon, for the most part, is really, really actually super deep red state.
Really?
Oregon itself has an incredible.
Wasn't there don't they have like separatists?
It was actually founded as a whites only state.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. And nobody ever talks about it. And that's the thing. And that's why those like awful sort of incredibly racist roots exist still to this day in Oregon. And like where my parents live, even though they're incredibly progressive, like my dad's like the one dude walking around in like a dumb Trump hat, right? I'm not kidding. He had them made, and like apparently it was quite a thing because the local proprietor did not want to make them.
Brave man.
But it is like where they live. I didn't know this is like the KKK capital of Oregon.
Really?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you think, oh, the South is where the racism is. No, baby, it's everywhere. Like it is everywhere, including in the state that also houses Portland. It's like one of those things where you're like in Portland, you're like, yay, keep it weird. It's queer. It's, I mean, it's also the whitest city in the United States, but like, there is some racial diversity there. I think it's getting better, right? But you step foot outside of Portland and it's like, ding, 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 ding.
I know that. That is a feeling that I know well.
Yeah, I bet, right? And I'm sure it's probably the same way, like in parts of Ohio that are like pretty progressive, and then you're like, oh.
Yes.
Just kidding. And why is every barn painted with like a American flag and flying?
Yeah, the farm next to where Devin and I got married was flying a Trump flag, and we tried to get it taken down, but they wouldn't. And so all our pictures, we just asked the photographer. So there's a couple pictures where like the camera's lower than you would expect it to be, and it's because we didn't want that sky shot with the flag flying in there.
Ugh, I'm so sorry.
It's where I grew up. I'm used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it is interesting to kind of like, because I think it's always existed, but like now everybody is just like literally letting their flags fly and you're like, "Oh, okay. This is the invisible shit."
Yeah,
Invisible,
and I mentioned to
invisible.
you that like Trump's coming 5 minutes from my house on Saturday
Oh my god, I bet you're so excited. You're going to walk down there.
with JD Vance.
Who is JD Vance? I don't actually even know.
It's like kind of sad. So when he first came into the public square, I thought he was interesting. He wrote Hillbilly Elegy.
Okay.
And I found that
That's a red flag, but okay.
and that was an interesting book for me because he grew up in Southern Ohio. His family had a lot of drug problems, like struggling from like the economic downturn that has affected a lot of communities in Ohio and stuff. And the book was like a reflection of him looking back on it after like being like Ivy League educated and like thinking about things. So it was kind of interesting. I would put it more in the lines of, like, you know, Elizabeth Warren, she wrote The Two Income Trap.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, like maybe not something I agreed with, but an interesting perspective that I thought like added to the discourse.
Right, like he had like an interesting like economic ideas.
Yes, and now like he started out as like almost like an anti-Trump Republican, like he had come out and said Trump like should be impeached and stuff. But now that he's starting to like win or be projected to be the Republican nominee for the Senate race, Trump is backing him and he's accepted the backing. So
well, yeah, he's got to go kiss the ring. Yeah.
It's just so yeah. Me and Devin are going to do our grocery shopping early in the morning on Saturday, and then just lock the doors and just not venture out into town.
Yeah, that does not seem like a terrible idea. That's probably the move. Probably the move.
I was so annoyed because like outside of us, like who he is and who we're bringing along, like at West Point we got a lot of presidential visitors. Mm-hmm. And it ruins like traffic. It's like super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You see snipers like in elevated locations. It's just not a fun experience.
I saw snipers once. This is not police related, but I was driving to work and there was this like kind of seedy like residential motel on the way.
Okay.
And I was stuck at a stoplight and I looked over to the left and there was like SWAT coming in and snipers on all the roofs. So I was like, stay red, stay red, stay red, stay red.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to see it happen.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty exciting.
So besides your girl trip, anything else?
That's kind of like the big thing off the top of my head, and I feel like I've already rambled long enough. What about you?
So a lot, but like I'm kind of going to get into some of it later in the Cage Rage.
Fair.
But the biggest thing is I've been on a book kick, which has been really nice.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay. I know what you've been reading.
Yes. So I finished Return of the King.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff in those books that I don't remember happening, mainly because like I've watched the movies so much.
Yeah.
That's kind of the narrative. So like I totally forgot the hobbits had to take back the Shire.
Oh. Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I think I read that when I was
It's like the last like 4 chapters of the book.
Whoa, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, and it was done really well, and like by the end of it, like when Sam was like, you know, like starting his life after Frodo left, like it was emotional. Lord of the Rings is just really special, and I like it.
Me too.
I finished Devolution by Max Brooks.
I've been meaning to check that out, and then the reviews were kind of meh, but then you're saying it's good.
Oh, I blew through in like 3 days.
Okay, because I loved World War Z.
Yes, so did Devin. It's actually World War Z is one of Devin's favorite books of all time.
It's a great book.
So she got Devolution on launch, and then when I had finished like another book, it was like almost like a Bad Bunch meets Redwall. So like mice and like squirrels going off on like a we're all gonna die mission.
What?
Yeah, it's called The Builders. It's very short. It's like 200 pages. It's super short. It's interesting. But I finished that. I went downstairs and I was like, I want to get a new book. And that was there. And I was like, okay, I'll start it. And it was just amazing. I liked it more than World War Z. Devin did not.
Really?
She did like it. She does like it, but it was just doesn't. World War Z is on a different level for her.
Right.
But I thought it was really interesting. I think Max Brooks does a really good job of like creating characters that have nuance and like all of his characters go on growth journeys, and I like that. So there's like no just like static characters who just kind of sit there and don't change.
Right.
And he's also really good at like describing scenarios. Like obviously you read World War Z, so you know how he describes a lot of like the offensive maneuvers and everything against the zombies. There's some stuff like that in this. I mean, he's so good at it that he's literally a professor at West Point at their War Games Center.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Very, 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 very interesting stuff. But I finished that last night, and then I started what's it called? The Only Good Indians.
I've had this on my to-read list. How is it?
I am on the 3rd chapter. It's good. I will be reading it after we get off here.
Okay. Is there anything else that you've been reading?
Yes. I am joining, obviously, as you know, the Zombie Girls for another venture into the world of V.C. Andrews. We are doing Heaven, which is the first book in the Castile quantology, whatever.
I think quintology. There's 5. Yeah.
Quintology. My Sweet Audrina had a lot of like subtle nods before it went off the rails in the last quarter.
Yeah, I know.
The way to describe is still there's you guys are not going to miss this book club. Oh my god, this is
If you're not a patron, like now is the time.
Oh my god.
Because pretty soon we're going to be hackling Heaven, and Larry will be joining us. And right now we're like, there you go.
But yes, if you want to hear us talk in detail about Heaven, it is coming up over on the Patreon.
It's gonna be great.
So before we get into the review, we do have some breaking Cage news.
Cage news.
So my big story, which isn't that big of a story to article to cite with it, but as of recording this weekend, the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent releases. I have looked into no reviews of it, but I have seen that it's doing pretty well, that a lot of people really like it. That it is what we were hoping it would be, a nice love letter to the career of Nic Cage and not a condescending or like malicious kind of thing.
Yeah.
Our plan is to go see it on Sunday. We were going to go on Saturday, but again, we're not leaving our house because I'm not dealing with the traffic or the people mainly.
Yep.
So we're planning on seeing on Sunday. Are you going to see it this weekend?
Yes, I'm gonna try to see it on Sunday as well.
Are you gonna go to the Chinese theater?
No.
Oh.
Are you talking about the Chinese theater? Are you talking about like in L.A.?
Well, you sent a picture. You went to wasn't that the Chinese theater? I thought you posted a picture.
That's just our regular ass theater. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That is the one I'm gonna go to.
Okay, I thought that was a Chinese theater. You sent the picture. It was like it's so pretty. Like. Okay.
It has like a really pretty atrium, but I think it was more just like it felt like church because I was like, I'm back.
Yes, I understand that.
And speaking of church, I go when everybody else is at church. It's great. It's me and like 3 other like 75-year-old heathens. It's perfect. For people.
And like I'm trying because we also want to see Everything Everywhere All at Once. Devin wants to see that.
Yep, it's supposedly excellent.
And then I want to see The Northman.
Oh, duh. Of course we need to see The Northman. I mean, it's Robert Eggers. It's a done deal.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the local theater here in town is only doing Sonic and like 2 other kids' movies. Yeesh. So we're going to have to venture into Columbus to go see these, so.
Yeesh. Okay. Well, Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you. But that's all I had. How about you?
Oh, well, there was a little bit of news because obviously he's doing a ton of press right now. And I thought he did specifically an interview with, I believe it was Vanity Fair, where they talked about a bunch of stuff. And I just thought I'd pull out a couple of interesting kind of notes that came out of this.
Sure.
Because the more we know about Cage, the more he is an enigma, and I love him. All right. So first of all, they were asking him about like getting back into comedy and how he's super excited to finally be returning to the genre because he's basically been doing other genres, like a lot of thriller, horror, sci-fi, whatever, right? It's been 15 years since he did a comedy before this, and so he is excited to do it again. But there is one genre left.
What was Prisoners of Ghostland then?
I mean, a crime cinema. unintentionally funny. I don't kind of like, the whole Wicker Man thing. God, I can't wait till we get to Wicker Man.
I know.
I cannot wait. If that might be my birthday select, actually.
Okay. I have not seen it all the way through.
Ooh, we're gonna definitely do that for my birthday. Okay, but the one genre he has not properly done is a musical, and that is something he really wants to do.
I'm here for it. I'm in.
I feel like he might chew up the scenery. Like, imagine him. What musical would you like to see him star in?
Oh man,
I'm thinking like The Music Man, something where he can be like super theatrical with it, right?
The Producers.
Oh, that's the answer right there.
I want to see him as the titular producer.
Yep. Nope, that's the right answer.
And then get someone to come in as Gene Wilder, some young up and coming kind of person.
Yeah.
I could see like taking somebody under his wing.
Mm-hmm. And he needs to be able to camp. Like he has to be able to camp it up.
And if they do
you have kind of a so-so relationship with camp, but in a musical, is camp acceptable?
100%.
Okay.
Most musicals should be campy if done right, I think.
Okay.
That's why I didn't really care for the Les Mis musical. Like I'm not a big Les Mis fan.
Mm-hmm.
But like your Sweeney Todd's and stuff, I'm here for it. Or Moulin Rouge. Oh my god,
Sweeney
Moulin
Todd
Rouge
would be another really good one. Like if he could be the butcher of whatever.
Speaking of those, real quick, do you know Baz Luhrmann's next movie is coming out?
Elvis?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it looks like it's not going to shy away from the darker side of Elvis, so I'm pretty excited.
Is that right? I know so little about Elvis the person.
There's some interesting stuff. He's a very interesting character. Definitely a product of his times. But I think Baz Luhrmann's probably like a top 3 director of mine easily. I think it's him, Scorsese, and Tarantino. And
nary a lady in the bunch.
I'm sorry.
Larry.
I'm sorry.
You need to watch more women-directed film, I think. I think that's the takeaway. I'm going to start making all my Forcenings women-directed films now. We got to bump one of them out of there.
To be fair, until recently, we haven't been promoting a lot of women directors. So during my formative years, a lot of movies I was getting were mainly male directed.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yes,
I'm just giving you shit. Like I think most people's list would look like that because they don't spend a bunch of time like seeking out women directed films. But I feel like some are going in the forced list. Awesome. Okay, so the other bit of news I thought was interesting from this was he talked about the infamous Superman film that sadly never came to be.
Which is a potential bonus thing we might work on at some point one day.
We absolutely have to. We must.
That documentary is just there for us to sit and take in.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And it would give us a reason to go back and watch Burton's Batman.
I mean, I have not watched Tim Burton's Batman in 20 years.
I'm more of a... So I love it, but I actually like Batman Returns a lot more.
I thought you liked... Oh, no, that's not... But it's not your favorite. Your
favorite is Forever. Yeah, Batman Forever is my...
Forever favorite?
Yes. Like, if this new Batman movie... Did you finish it?
No, I've watched... I have a terrible attention span. I've watched 1 hour.
Okay. Even though I think that this is the best portrayal we've ever gotten of Bruce Wayne Batman on the silver screen, my favorite is Batman Forever.
That's fair.
Val Kilmer and Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey and Nicole Kidman and just Seal. Like it's just all there.
Are we just gonna act like Batman versus Superman never happened? Is that what we're doing on this show?
The R-rated.
I'm just kidding.
The R-rated version is not bad.
You liar! It's terrible. Okay, so anyways, they asked him about this and about how they basically mentioned how like Tim Burton had cast him to be Superman, and Cage wanted to set the record straight. So I pulled this quote. He says, "Tim Burton did not cast me. I cast Tim Burton. They wanted Rennie Harlan, and he's a nice guy and perfectly capable. But for me, the vision I had for Kal-El was more of a Tim Burton-style presentation universe. He went on to say that he has made peace with the fact that the film was never made and enjoys the place that the abandoned movie holds in Hollywood lore. That's always been a positive and a negative to me. The positive in that it left the character and what Tim and I might have gotten up to in the realm of the imagination, which is always more powerful than it is concrete. Than when it is concrete. And a negative in that it would have been something special. Is there a chance, presumably, for him to pick this project up again? Who knows?
I think that's a really great point. I think that a lot of things kind of build this nostalgia or like this like what it could have been.
Yeah.
And I do think a Nick Cage, Tim Burton Superman movie might have been incredibly special.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
it could have been a disaster, but we'll never like. It's like the Schrodinger's box of movies.
He has a really, really great point, though, I think, of just, like, we don't know, and maybe that's for the best.
What do you think of this idea of him picking it up again? Would you want to see something like that? Like, is there a Batman Beyond of Superman? I don't know Superman.
So my Superman isn't as good as Batman, but I think there could be. I think you could easily do that. Like, have him be a dad with a kid. I mean, Brightburn came out, oh my gosh, 3 years ago. And
that simultaneously feels like no time and a million years.
I know.
I don't even know how to like comprehend that.
I got a push from my phone for pictures of when we went for a hike 3 years ago today out in Utah. I was like, that was 3 years ago.
It's weird.
Weird. Time is an enigma. I don't know. I think why not? I mean, the thing is, that's like, I would rather have an original story too. Like, I am so exhausted by rehashes and redos and reboots and sequels, and I want to see new things. That's why I think A24 is so important, because like they may not hit all the time, but they are at least constantly trying to do new things. And it's another reason why I like books, because even if books, I mean, I think a lot of books, especially the adventure or fantasy ones that I read, follow that hero's journey, right? But at least it's usually different. Like, there are different aspects, different things that happen in it, and I think that's why I'm drawn to books and kind of video games too, because usually it maybe same gameplay but a different kind of story.
Yeah,
I feel like movies, at least in the mainstream, have just gotten so cookie cutter and safe.
Oh yeah, of course. Especially the more and more we get like the what is it called? Like the monopolies, basically, on all of, as they buy up more and more and more of the market share, it's just going to get more and more homogenized, which is right. You're right. Like it's your A24s and your Spectravisions, your Blumhouses that are going to take some risks and do some interesting things. And I think that there's always going to be a market for that. Like, maybe it isn't a market that's going to earn you $500 million box office.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I am delighted to see another Jurassic Park movie, well, sort of delighted to see another Jurassic Park movie, like there's no way that movie is going to take a single risk.
No, and that's the thing too, is like, and I don't want to give the person who was behind it any credit, but if you think back to the 90s and what the Weinstein Company did, they were scouring your film festivals, like your Sundances, right? Yeah. And they were finding these movies, and they had enough capital to bring it wide, and people ate it up because that's what they wanted. Yeah. They wanted these unique stories. And there's a place for blockbusters. Like, that's why that book I read, The Best Movie Year Ever, 1999, like, we talked about The Matrix, but we also talked about what was the one that you said you could relate to with Reese Witherspoon? Election. And like,
that's hurtful that you remember that.
Well, you said that, so it's stuck.
No, I know.
and like your Blair Witches and stuff, and it's just like, like there are so many creative people out there, and I don't blame the people who are writing in Hollywood. I blame the executives for just playing it safe. I mean, for Christ's sake, like I have no interest in seeing the new Harry Potter movie for a multitude of reasons, between J.K. and like Johnny Depp getting replaced. Even though I love Mads, like as more comes out, it really seems like he got, you know, you don't think so? From what I've been reading in the trial, it definitely seems like I don't understand how he has been sullied in the way he has, and she has not. Like, she's still.
I think they're both abusive, and that's the thing. Is like I think there's this. People want to like victimize him because he's.
Well, people want a good guy and bad guy. They always want a clear cut.
And I don't think that's the case. I think they're both abusive, and so like, do I think she should face more consequences potentially? Sure, but I don't feel bad for Johnny Depp because he was also abusive.
Yeah, you know it's also hard when she's still like the ambassador for the UN for like women's rights.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I feel like
people suck. At the end of the day, I guess people suck.
I don't know that she will ever achieve, because this is so ugly. I do think that maybe he has lost in the court system, but she has certainly lost in the public sphere, which is where fame and stuff like that exists, and consequences tend to stick to women in ways that they don't to men. Yeah. So even though he will have this awful, you know, stigma to some degree, like Mel Gibson is making movies again. And he's making them with Mark Wahlberg. You mean to tell me that if they don't think that there's a financial reason to give Johnny Depp a big blockbuster picture, that he won't get it? Of course he will. Of course he will.
I think after this all comes through, I think that he will see a renaissance of Johnny Depp.
Of course, especially because what they have not been successful in doing in the court, they have been able to do in the court of public opinion. Like the fact that even you are kind of like, I don't know, speaks to how good of a PR campaign.
I don't know. I heard like those audio tapes, you know. That's the thing.
No, they're both super, of course, and they were leaked, right? Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff was leaked by each of their respective camps. Like they're running a PR campaign, and the fact is, like he did a lot of the shit that she said he did.
Yeah, and she also
people are mad because she's. I mean, yes, they're both abusive. So like, I would like to see them both face consequences, but like when people, like are like. I kind of feel like people are giving him more of the benefit of the doubt because like he has been like penalized in the court system.
Yeah.
But he did these things. He still did them. So like he still should face whatever consequences he comes his way, but she also deserves some consequences as well. And it's messy, but
yeah. But back to Fantastic Beasts, the thing that bothers me is that Warner Brothers edited out the Dumbledore's gay stuff for the Chinese release.
Of course they did. There is no ethical consumption in a capitalist system.
And it's like, just so exhausting to me because it's like Hollywood is speaking out against like all these new legislations that's coming out against anti-gay and anti-trans stuff, and then it's like at the same time you're doing this shit. Mm-hmm. It's like like hypocrisy kills me. It kills me so much in the end. It's like if like I would respect you so much more if you were just like we aren't getting involved in it no matter what.
So you liked the initial response that Disneyland had to the Don't Say Gay bill to like be like, oh, you know, we're just going to stay out of it.
I think that Disney has such a small leg to stand on because of what they have allowed to transpire under their watch in places like China. Yeah. Or Japan, where it's like you're not allowed to be gay, but they have a Japan Disney World, or in like China where they filmed where they literally were having the genocide of the Uyghurs.
Yeah,
it's like
listen. I'm just asking in this.
For me, it's like if you are going to have,
would they have earned back more of your respect had they never said anything about the Don't Say Gay bill?
Yeah, I think so because
really
it's mean like it's just it doesn't seem real. I don't think they really care.
No, I don't think so either.
I think it's literally just for PR. I do not buy any of it.
So here's the hair I will split. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I don't think they give a solitary fuck about their queer employees
they don't.
Queer people. They care about their bottom line. However, regardless of how they feel, they wield a great degree of economic power, which is the only power that actually exists in America. And so doing the right thing for the wrong reasons can still have positive outcomes.
Yeah.
So that's the hair I split.
We'll see if they hold their ground. Because I know I saw recently that DeSantis
you saw what they did, right?
is going to. He's threatening to pull away their tax loop stuff.
Well, we'll see what happens when they start pulling all of their funding of the. We'll see what happens. Like right now, what we're watching is like two groups kind of like seeing who has the most power in the situation. At the end of the day, like they donate so much money. If they took all of that money and funneled it into like DeSantis's opponents, that could move the needle.
You think it would?
It could. I'm not saying it would. I'm saying it could move the needle.
I think that guy has that state.
I mean, he's certainly... This is probably a cage rage conversation, so we'll save this for later. Okay. But my point is, I think, yes. Like
you're more optimistic than me, I think. I
am really not that optimistic.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, for me, I'm... Like, when people are like, I don't... they're hypocrites. I'm like, yeah. What is the outcome of that hypocrisy? Is it actually a net positive? Because if it is, I will take your dirty money. I don't give a shit what you feel about. You don't care about gay people. I don't care about you, but I will take your money if it's gonna like actually help some trans kids not commit suicide. You know what I mean? Like the stakes for the people who are impacted by this are so freaking high. I don't give a shit about the ethics.
Yeah.
That's where I stand, but like that, you have a much stronger like.
Yeah, we've discussed it multiple times at long like that. That's like my biggest thing is like it's hard for me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Like you definitely.
I'd rather spit in your face and just tell you to go to hell and do it myself some other way, but that's not real politique.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, are you ready to talk about Vietnam?
Oh my god, I know. You're gonna have to cut so much of this opening. I'm so sorry.
Why? Do you think we should? I mean, I'll edit out the heaven stuff, but this is fine.
I mean, I feel like you could probably cut whole swaths of this.
No, people know what they're getting when they come on to the Nic Cage Show. It is a...
Do they?
It is a bag of fun. But yes,
all right, yes.
Everybody sit back, relax, and we're going to talk some Nic Cage and Matthew Modine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Rachel, I told you I did not look into any of the background of this movie.
Oh, good.
I'm very excited to hear what you have to say because this was an interesting watch.
Mm-hmm. So, you keep using that word.
Well, so now that we're in the review proper, I'm not sure if, like, I hated this or if I loved it or if I'm just, like, in the middle.
Well, I wonder if some of this will help illuminate that because I think... there is a fundamental core problem with this movie.
Okay.
And it has to do with the adaptation of it. So let me tell you about this movie.
Perfect.
Let me tell you. All right. So this movie is a 1984 American drama based on a novel by the same name by William Wharton. This was actually his first novel. And there are some differences in the book to what ended up on screen, including the setting and the time frame and kind of the focus of the book.
The time frame, it wasn't Vietnam?
No, it was actually World War II.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because the people do not feel like teenagers in the 60s.
No, they
feel
don't.
like teenagers in the 30s.
That makes so much sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it was directed by Alan Parker, who is an English filmmaker whose credits are actually kind of interesting and diverse. I've seen some of his films. I did not realize they were all directed by the same person. He directed Fame.
Oh, wow.
Pink Floyd The Wall.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Angel Heart.
I've not heard of that one.
Oh, that's the Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, Lisa Bonet, like sexy Southern devil movie.
Ooh, okay.
It's an interesting folklore we should definitely touch on at some point on one of our other projects.
Okay.
Mississippi Burning.
Oh, shit. That's a great movie.
Yep. The Commitments.
I don't know that one.
Okay. And Evita.
Oh, okay.
And his final film was The Life of David Gale before he passed in 2020.
I do not know that one. Okay.
That is like an anti-death penalty film with Kevin Spacey in it.
That is one of the kind of political topics that I have come way around on.
Interesting. Well, we'll save it for the cage, right?
Yes.
All right. So Parker was initially was initially attached to direct the film in 1978 when he was provided with an advance copy of the book and was told it was going to be optioned. But after reading it, he sent it back with a note saying great book, impossible to bring to the screen.
Sure.
Because so much of the book as it is written takes place inside Birdy's head and was written in a very literary style. A lot of it, for instance, the stuff about what it feels to fly was in poem form.
That would be very interesting. And
thus is the crux of, I think, maybe where this movie doesn't quite come together. Is I think he was right with this initial instinct.
Yeah.
So he had moved on from it. However, in 1982, two writers, Sandy Kroof and Jack Beer, had adapted the film into a screenplay and had been shopping it around forever, and it ended up back on Parker's desk, where he decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to make this film, because they had made some pretty substantial changes to the original story, including, like I said, updating the book to take place before the Vietnam War, as well as focusing the book away from sort of the internal life of Birdy and his love of flight and his passion for birds to the friendship that he and Al shared.
Okay.
Yeah, because they had to do something about all of that internal dialogue. Mm-hmm. So Parker, once he came on board, decided to commission the artist who would do the score for this film, and he selected 1980s prog rock icon Peter Gabriel to write the score for the film. I
noticed that. Okay.
Yes, this was his first film score ever, and a very interesting choice.
Yes.
So Matthew Modine was the first cast as Birdy, but he had actually auditioned for the role of Al at first.
Okay.
And Parker took a look at his thing and said, nope, not Al. He needs to be Birdy because of his, quote, introverted, honest quality that best suited the character. Modine was a little surprised by the role. He says, I was flabbergasted. This is in an interview with New York Times, by the way.
Okay.
It's called, I was flabbergasted because I had an audition for Birdy. I had never imagined playing the part of Birdy. So I really had to go through an extraordinary transformation in my mind of trying to bring this remarkable character to life. It was an incredible experience making the film. So Nicolas Cage was then brought on to play the role of Al, and he had actually applied for the role, and so this is the one he wanted. And yet he faced some struggles of his own. This was his most emotionally challenging role to date, so he wanted to go that extra mile to make sure that it was perfect, right? And we all know Nic Cage now is this guy who never phones it in. He goes 100 million miles an hour.
Thespian.
A thespian, exactly. And that started at a very early stage of his career. Let's just say that Nic Cage walked so that Jared Leto could be a totally creepy weirdo.
Jared Leto is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Nic Cage is not sending anybody use condoms or anything like that. Although he did go pretty method for this. I'm so glad you didn't look this up, because this is one of the things that blew my mind.
Okay.
Yeah. He lost 15 pounds for the role because he assumed that Al had, later on, this is 15 pounds for the parts where he is post-war, because he assumed with the injury that is sustained in Vietnam, it would be hard for him to eat.
Yeah.
So he would naturally be skinnier. He also wore the bandages for the entire shoot. He never took them off.
Okay.
So when he's talking about the itching or the discomfort or all of that came from his method acting.
Cool.
So he says, I could have taken those bandages off, but I didn't. I left them on for 5 weeks. I slept in them. I'd wake myself up in the middle of the night and say, don't sleep on that side. That's the hurt side. But that's not all.
Okay.
He did one other thing.
Okay, because so far it's okay.
He went so far as to have 2 of his front teeth removed without anesthetic.
Why?
He says, I wanted to look like I was hit by a bomb. It gave me a feeling of something I had lost. He shrugs off the sacrifice. I felt this was a once-in-a-lifetime part, and it deserved that much.
Okay.
So I was watching interviews with him after the fact, and I was like, how did I not notice he was missing teeth? Because, like, they're
I didn't notice it either.
Prominent teeth. Yeah. I mean, it was in these interviews with him. I told you I watched an interview with him and Matthew Modine where they were high.
Yes, you did tell me that. Yeah.
Like, as someone who interviews people for a living, they were a nightmare. Like, honestly, I think it was easier to pull the actual teeth than pulling answers out of Nick Cage in this interview. But then I really, like, when they switched to Matthew Modine, because they were doing them jointly, because they were really trying to, like, market the friendship of this film. Like, I was like, oh, they're fucking high.
Those dual interviews are always so interesting because you can tell, like, if they're actually friends or if they're there for, like, publicity. Like, we talked about, I think you and I talked about when Robert Pattinson was with Zoe Kravitz and he was talking about Final Fantasy VII, the video game. And how Zoe Kravitz just did not give a fuck, and he was trying to get her to buy in, and she just did not give a fuck. And it's just
no.
So at least they're high. I mean, at least they weren't like
I mean, I don't know if they're friends, but they had some bonding pre-interview for sure. I'll send you. Now that you've heard all this, I'll send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any of my stuff. All right. So principal photography began in May of 1984, and they shot in various locations, including a women's prison wing located in Philadelphia, on a rooftop of an abandoned gasworks in Hercules, California, at the Newby Hill Island landfill in Santa Clara County, and where there were serious health concerns because of all of the actual exposed garbage and the methane gas. So they originally were going to have him land in this reservoir 30 feet from the landfill, like a naturally occurring reservoir. But then they tested the water and it was super, super hazardous. So they had to do all of this experimentation. They tried to do all these different things. And eventually they just had to construct that little pond at the bottom of the hill for him to land in because it was so unhealthy there. Yeah, so basically this movie was shot in all of these towns that are around me, which is kind of fun. I don't know. Yeah, just kind of like these are all local places that I'm like, yep, been there. I mean, not to the dump, but you know what I mean.
Well, maybe you have no judgment.
Right? Don't tell me how to live.
One of my favorite scenes in all of cinematic history is in Stand By Me when they're hanging out in the dump.
Oh my God. Did you see that interview with Jerry O'Connell and Will Wheaton this week?
No.
Oh, it's like pretty sad. It was like basically Jerry O'Connell apologizing to Will Wheaton for not being more aware of like all the abuse that he was experiencing from his parents while they were shooting that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I love Will Wheaton.
Anyway,
this movie marked the first time first time any movie had been partially shot in a new technology called Skycam, which was a computer-controlled cable-suspended camera system that was created by the inventor of the Steadicam.
I'm going to guess that's when Birdy was flying.
Ding, ding, ding. It was created to depict his point of view during that flight.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it didn't work that well. Like, the first take was great, but, like, they wanted it to move faster or something, so they shot it again, and the camera broke. Okay. So they ended up basically having to create this, like, Steadicam, like, mount, where they did, like, an improvised camera dolly on it, which, we'll talk about that shot.
Yeah.
Okay, so Birdy was released in theaters in 1984. It was received well by critics. It was chosen by the National Board Review as one of the top 10 films of 1984. It won the Grand Prix Special du Jury Prize at Cannes in 1985. However, it did not do very well at the box office. It grossed $1.4 million against a budget of $12 million. Oof. So pretty much a floppity flop. Okay, so a couple other random bits of trivia. I couldn't really fit this into the narrative, but I thought they were interesting, so I'm just going to tell you right here at the end. A then unknown Danny Glover was scheduled to make a speech as a bit player in this film.
Really?
But he kept botching his lines, and so his scenes were cut from the film.
Where was he going to have a speech at?
So he was going to be another bird aficionado that befriended Birdy.
Oh, that would have been cool. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay.
Yeah. In both the film and the novel, Birdy's name is never revealed.
Okay.
And finally, this is the film debut of actor Marshall Bell, who is a character actor that's been in many things, but forever will always be known to me as George, the host body of Quato in Total Recall.
Rachel, you want another confession from me?
No! Shut up! Don't say you haven't seen Total Recall.
Okay, I won't say it.
Oh my, well, I guess we know what your fourth thing is going to be. That just changed.
I said this in the Discord. I told people this review is going to be all over the place because as we get into plot, the plot's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think Vietnam is a very interesting area to explore in American history, whether it be through books or music or film or whatever, because there's so much that happened in that time period, domestically, internationally. I think is really, really interesting. And I thought as this movie kind of unfolded that it was going to be really cool. As someone who like has a lot of like guy friendships, like I never had a brother, right? So I have a lot of really close relationships with guys who I would consider my brother, right? Even though we aren't blood, like I would do anything for them. And so this kind of story always really appeals to me, especially because like they're both broken in like different ways and trying to deal with it and like wanting to take him under his wing and like giving up the girl he was hanging out with because he thought he was cool and Birdy standing up to his dad. Let me tell you my biggest con with the plot, and it's the reason why I'm like so stuck on where I'm at with this movie.
Right.
I didn't think Birdy was real.
Oh, interesting. You thought he was like an imaginary friend?
I literally thought it was like a Shutter Island kind of situation, yeah.
Okay.
And so when yeah, like and I kept thinking like especially like with a lot of stuff with the dad stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff dealing with his sexuality, a lot of stuff like dealing with like separating himself from what happened during Vietnam. Like all of these kind of things kind of built up in my head.
The weird questions the doctor kept asking about his own condition. Like as you're saying this, I could see how you could totally feel that way.
And so when the doctor came in at the end and like I didn't notice Birdy under the bed. And then like
oh shit.
Yeah, and so like I was like, okay, this is what's happening. And then like when he's like shaking Birdy, saying, hey, talk to him, but he won't talk when the doctor's there, only when it's just Al there. Like I don't.
You over there like, I'm too smart for this movie. They're not gonna pull the wool over old Larry's eyes.
Yeah, but not only that, but I thought that was really interesting because there's so much about the character of Al and the character of Birdy that blend together. Not that that's a bad thing. I think close friendships are like that in a lot of ways. Like it's like really close friendships that border on that brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever, right? Like they bleed in together. Like one of my really good friends, Roman, like he and I grew up in the same hometown. We had kind of similar family issues and stuff, and like and he didn't have a brother, and neither did I. Like it was like, there's a lot of things about he and I that are very similar, and I think that's interesting. It's just I don't think they did enough with either of these characters to pay off like the journey we went on. I don't know. I really struggle with it, especially because like Nic Cage was so forceful with his sexuality and Birdy was so like reserved, and like we never. I don't know. I think it would have been a lot more interesting, and I think the narrative was set up for them to be one and the same.
I mean, as you're saying this, I can totally see that. That is. I mean, and I think what that is also a remnant of is the fact that it is kind of an unadaptable story.
Yeah, what you said actually helps me chew it a lot better because, like, if they expanded the character of Al to tell the story fully, then that makes sense because they had to pull from what they had in the source material, and that would be Birdy's consciousness. So if you're pulling that to create another character, you're going to get that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and what happens as a result is that one half of these two are totally inscrutable.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, I mean, I think Matthew Modine, I'm getting ahead of ourselves into acting, like, it's no shade to Matthew Modine, but I think the character itself, because he is, it's interesting that he is seemingly asexual and perhaps somewhere on the autism spectrum.
Yes,
before
100%.
There was like real discussion about what that means, the way that he is like hyper focused,
which I did find interesting. I thought that was handled well and like not like shitty either. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, It is interesting. Like it's a very kind portrayal,
Yes.
but it also is not reckoned with in a way that allows
At
you
all.
to get past like the wall. Like you as an audience member never get to see the part of Birdy that would make you love him the way that Al does. You know what I mean?
And,
he remains opaque.
and that's why
to the
one of
very
like
end.
the best depictions, at least in what I have seen, of like an autistic character, what you were describing, like kind of learning them and like getting to connect with them, was Rain Man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think a lot of autistic people would disagree.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, but
Oh.
I do. I think that's our first intro. I think the issue is because like everybody thinks that's what autistic is, and it's just like one of the many ways
Sure.
that autism
Sure.
presents itself. But I do think it is a much more effective empathy builder.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you absolutely there. Like I think you do genuinely care about that character,
Mhm.
whereas it's harder to do so with Birdy, even though he's not being presented as in the same way that like Rain Man is. He is clearly autistic.
Yes.
Like that is the plot of this, whereas we like from a modern perspective looking at the character recognize like this is an asexual like autistic character.
Yeah.
But the and I think that there's room for that in the like in film depiction, like that someone's autism or their sexuality, like heteronormative sexuality, can be just incidental to a character. But I think it also has to be written in a way that you can connect with them on an emotional level, and I think only Al provides you that.
Yes.
And so
And
it's harder to fully invest.
And I totally agree with that, because we've talked before, maybe not on this podcast, but somewhere in some recording, we talked about how like I prefer it, especially in modern like cinema, instead of like saying this character is gay, you have to, like they're the victim, or like you have to care about them, like whereas their homosexuality or if they're trans or whatever, it's just a part of their character. It's not their journey. It's just who they are. I find that so much more constructive, because I think like they aren't defined, like Birdy's not defined by the asexuality or the autism. Birdy is defined by his desire to want to fly and his desire to be different. I think that's totally fine, and that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
Because I think you did a great job of explaining that. It's more, like I said, it makes so much sense since you said that that's what Al got built off of, because you can see it.
Yeah. I do think one of the other real strengths of this movie, it is like an anti-toxic masculinity.
I loved it.
Which is interesting.
I loved it so much.
Because it's a war film and like a coming of age film. Those are two genres that can easily tip into like some really toxic things.
They normally do.
But instead, it's about like this really like deep. That final scene when he's holding him and like begging him to speak. Like I was just as cold and dead as I am sometimes. Like that did get me. I think because it's such a totally unself-conscious, like reserved display of like masculine vulnerability and love between like platonic love between, or maybe even not platonic, doesn't matter. The point is it's like a truly raw and vulnerable display of love between two men.
And building
I
on
think
that,
is beautiful.
and building on that, I agree with you so much, because I feel like a lazier writer, like someone who really wasn't trying to adapt this best way they could, and I do think they tried their best, would have made them gay. I think they've been a very like lazy kind of way out. But the thing is like men do have close emotional relationships. Men do cry. Men do hold each other. And to portray that and not have to like say, well, they're doing it because they're gay, right? To have it like they just love each other, like you said, platonically. Like that's what it is, and like, that's okay. Like they're both soldiers. They both got injured in war. Like Nic Cage was a high school wrestling standout. And the other big thing for me too was like the vulnerability with Nick with his dad. Like Nick was his like really sexual, like really good looking, like great at sports, but when it came to his dad, like, and that's something I can like understand. Like I'm not the same person when I'm around like my family. And
I agree. It's impactful when he cries, when his dad slaps him and he cries.
Oh yeah, I felt this movie did a lot of things that made me feel a lot of ways, and that was one of them. It's just like
it is. Yeah, it's a mixed bag, right? Like it doesn't quite work, but that you take the pieces apart, and there's some really amazing things about it.
And it goes back to why I thought that they were one and the same, because like when Nic Cage is just standing there, when Birdy's like, "Listen, like I'm not afraid of you. Like you can hit me, you can do whatever you want, you can do what you want, but you're like that was our car." like you did something wrong, and but like Nick's not in the room, he's just like outside like crying when it's happening. Like it helped, it made me think what I was thinking, but it also reminded me of A Prayer for Owen Meany's, the book, but the movie Simon Birch.
I mean, I saw it a million years ago. I don't remember it.
Well, but basically, it's like the character Simon Birch is just very, or Owen Meany in the book is just like he knows like he's going to die soon. Oof. So like he's like
maybe I didn't see it.
So he just doesn't care. Like he's going to do what he thinks is right, even if like and like his friend gets taken aback by that in a lot of situations because he's like why are you like acting so irrational? He's like I don't know. I liked it. There were like I said, there were a lot of things about this movie I liked. There were a lot of things that I thought were missteps, but like the relationship between Modine and Cage, even though like I think they muddied it, I think was beautiful, especially for early 80s.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, because you also have to think this is like height of gay panic over the AIDS crisis. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's a good point.
Especially because like we've done other movies where Cage is a lot more alpha, like we did Cotton Club, for God's sake. And like Modine, you and I have been texting about it, but he was in Vision Quest in the same year, and that's a super masculine movie. If those who haven't seen it, so like, I don't know. I found it very interesting, and it's the reason why I like. We've been talking about this. We've been all over the place, but like, it's why I think art house films are important, because even if they miss the mark, even if they aren't commercially successful, I think they can open up conversations to really interesting takes. Like I think watching this movie, then sitting around with people at a coffee shop around a fire and talking about it and breaking it down like we're doing right now is enjoyable. It's something we couldn't do in Cotton Club because there was no there. It was just blah.
No.
There is something here to chew on. And so
yeah. So as great a job as they do with these male characters, and I agree with everything you're saying, I think it's super important to see these.
I'm already in agreement. I know what you're going to say.
Ooh, this movie does not think very much of women. Ooh, God.
They are like, they inconsequential.
Barely exist.
Yeah.
They, aside from like their breasts, they barely exist, or to be like a shrew who kind of crushes a man. Like those are the two types of women that exist in here. Like they're objectified as either like, you know, shrewish sexual objects, or like maternal, like baby, like mommy baby dynamics with the nurse.
Did you feel that Birdy's prom date was on the spectrum as well?
I mean, that didn't strike me as more so that she was incredibly inexperienced and just like did not know what to do. So she just like put it out there, and it did not go well, because
maybe that's what it was like. It was their interaction in the car that made me think, are they like,
I think it also is a product of the fact that this originally took place in the 30s.
Yes. Okay.
As opposed to the 60s.
Because
like, it's one of those weird remnants that I'm like, no.
Yeah, because that whole situation, like, we know Birdy was only there because his mom threatened to take the birds away. So we knew why he was there. But, like, it's the way she interacted. But I think you said the inexperience. Because I thought, even though she was in it so briefly, I thought she was like the most well fleshed out like female character we had. Like,
quite literally.
Yeah, she had like some kind of arc.
Fleshed out. That's where you went with this.
There was a lot of boob in this movie. Yes.
There was a lot of boob in this movie.
There's a lot of boob in this movie.
All right. So, acting. What did you think of the acting in this?
It made me like Matthew Modine more.
Yeah, he's great in this. Like, he's asked to do a lot physically.
Yeah.
All of those prolonged scenes of him like perched on the bed frame or underneath the bed, like he really delivers a tortured and also like animalistic nonverbal performance that is pretty incredible.
And I mentioned Rain Man, but the problem with Rain Man is that like Dustin Hoffman's character sometimes seems like over the top.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people on the
I meant more the empathy,
atypical.
Yeah, I meant more the empathy side, but the performance, I definitely see what you're talking about. But for this, like everything with him is so subtle. Like the scene where like where it's not even sexual. It's just like a release, but not in a sexual way. Like after prom, he comes home, he strips down naked, he gets into the birdcage and just like lays there. Like that whole performance. Because I know Modine, like I said, from Vision Quest, obviously Stranger Things now, but like Full Metal Jacket, my name in the chat right now is Private Joker. Like I like Matthew Modine a lot, but I have never seen this kind of performance from him, and I found it really moving. Like I felt like this was a young actor who was doing, like, Vision Quest was a big movie, and obviously Full Metal Jacket was Kubrick, so like
yeah.
But this was something different. This was something special, and I felt like it was a special performance. I really did. Yeah, for the problems that I did have, I felt like it was given 110% in a very sincere way. Yeah.
Yep. I agree with everything you said about Matthew Modine. I think Nic Cage is also pretty great in this.
100% agree.
I think, and it's really especially interesting to watch because we are doing this the way we are, watching how his craft is kind of progressing.
Yes.
And I think, you know, as goofy as the stories are of him, like, not taking off the bandages and pulling off teeth and stuff, I think he really goes for it here and manages to give an incredibly subtle performance, especially in those moments, like you said, where he gets slapped and he cries in the back seat, or that final, like, it's so bombastic, the final scene, and yet it stays in this kind of place of
realism,
hysterical reality. Yeah. And so he's great in this.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's like one of the things that, like, I really have enjoyed is like watching Cage kind of grow, right? Because we've seen it, and the pulling the teeth out is fucking ludicrous. But like the wearing the bandages, I think, is like that makes sense. It's just smart because, like, you don't know what it's like. I mean, you can act, but like to actually wear them and like to have that reaction, like, I think that's like an interesting thing. Like, I think, and we passed it, but like Vietnam is just very interesting, and like you said, you made so many things clearer to me by the background because they didn't touch on anything. One of the things, in my opinion, that makes First Blood, the first Rambo movie, so powerful is that...
So this is where I confess I have not seen it.
Really?
No.
Okay, so it's based on a book, but the movie, like, what's so interesting is because of all the anti-war sentiment about Vietnam, when Rambo's like, he's literally just walking through a town and they hate him because he's a war vet, and something happens that triggers his PTSD, and then the whole town's over industrialized military comes after him.
Got it.
And so I mean, the first Rambo is a very interesting film. It turns into your...
That's what I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
First Blood is a very interesting film, but that is missing from this. But I think what Modine and Cage do is a really good job of like showing that like people come back from war broken. Like, I have some really close friends who have like deployed multiple times, and for the most part they're the same. But if you sit down and talk to them, like, they have experienced things that just, like, I have a buddy who saw someone die above him. You know what I mean? And like that fundamentally changes who you are, how you act, all that jazz. And so to see a movie show, not like they were both broken in their own ways. So it wasn't like there was one strong person like, hey, you can get through this, like, it's not gonna be that bad, right? They were both broken and trying to help the other become whole again. And we talk about in plot how there's some issues with that because of the characters melding, but I thought that Cage and Modine did a really good job of showing like the more broken side of what war can do to people.
I mean, those are definitely the most poignant scenes. Those were much more affecting than some of the like coming of age stuff.
100%. I thought the coming of age stuff did not hit, and it makes sense because they were trying to film 30 vibes in the 60s.
Yeah. Although I did enjoy their like the bird suits.
Oh my god, that was amazing. That was
when he's like, I am not gonna wear that.
That was so good.
To them on the freaking thing.
That was so good. And again, like, it goes back to like we talked about a little bit earlier with Stand By Me, is like coming of age can be done well. You can show vulnerability, absolutely. But like it takes a lot. And I think that this movie it does. I think that's more maybe directing or writing. But when it comes to acting, I thought that these broken soldiers trying to make themselves whole with each other was very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right, directing. I think we got to talk about the sky cam.
Yes.
It's just so out of sync with the rest of the film.
Yeah.
That it felt silly to me.
It felt... I understand what they were trying to do. Like,
yes.
Like we discussed it, right? It was like that release. It wasn't like a sexual release. It was Birdy finally flying. You could have done it so much differently. It was too long. It went to places it didn't need to. Like, not like subject matter, but like locations. You know what I mean?
So, and here's why I think you're right. Yeah, there's a purpose to it, but I don't think it lands. It's this idea that he can rise above the darkest things in his life, that he can fly away from them. That flight is freedom because he can rise above the dark stuff. Mm-hmm. And I only know this because I read interviews. Yeah. Because I don't think it comes through.
No, and I think you could have accomplished that in different ways. Like, maybe when you were shooting some of those scenes, like, they don't have drones, but like you could have like had like a dolly, and like when you're shooting some of the scenes like where it is dark, like show like the camera like pan up from that, you know, and like look forward. I don't know. It just, when you do experimental things with the camera, sometimes it lands, like Halloween with John Carpenter, that opening scene. Like or with Hitchcock, right? There are times where they take risks and it pans out. This was a miss.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because I get what they were trying to do, but it did not work for what they were trying to do. And like you said, this movie that borders on this like sense of like dream to realism, but it's like hovering right there on this boundary. Mm-hmm. It misses it takes you out of it.
I think part of it is because it's too low.
Yeah, I agree.
It's too low, so it feels like a dolly cam of some kind as opposed to flight.
I don't know if you do like a green screen, because like when you go back and watch like Willy Wonka, right? When they take the glass elevator up and they're flying over the town, it should have been that high up.
Yeah.
Or do what they did in Birds and like have a painted background. Like, I don't need to see Birdy flying through the sky like Peter Pan, but you could have done something like,
let's get some matte paintings.
Yeah, it worked. Like, there's a reason why they did it for so long, and
yeah,
I think the desired effect could have been a lot better.
I agree. It just didn't. It didn't work, and to me, it just stood out
badly. Like,
all of a sudden, I was like, this doesn't fit with the aesthetic and the style of this film, and it didn't feel dreamlike. It felt. I could feel the mechanism. I could feel the mechanic 100%.
Of it. I could not agree with you more.
Like, it didn't have that feeling of flight. It felt like a feeling.
Was this his first movie, Rachel?
No.
Yeah, like I said, we know it's art house. We know they were doing, like you said, like it was the first time they kind of used this new technology. Mm-hmm. But similarly to like when you watch some old CGI, like the first CGI, right? Some of them hit, some of them don't. Even today, the same thing. Like, if you can't do it, go back to the tried and true stuff, because you can lose an audience.
Yeah. Yep. My other thoughts with this, and this might be more of a script issue, is that this thing jumps around so much. I found myself getting lost in the plot quite a bit. Like, I didn't feel like there was a real through line.
There wasn't.
It just jumped around a little too much. And that might be an editing problem or a script problem, but one of the things I looked for a director too is to kind of like take my hand and guide me through this, even if it's surreal and strange and, you know, yeah.
Christopher Nolan does a great job with that. Like with The Prestige or Memento, like he does a great job of like, we're going to get weird with it, but you'll know where you're at.
Right. Even Lynch, you know what I mean? Like when we get into some like really weird, strange art house, like I always feel a bit of a guiding hand. Like it's a little bit through a funhouse mirror, but with this, I found myself kind of like whiplashing.
No, and I think that part of it goes back to like our characters are one, but they're separated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you start talking about Al's past or Al's history or all that jazz, and it's like, but you're not though. Like, you're talking about Al through Birdy. And so, like, that's why I think they should have picked one character and, like...
Yeah. I agree. And it should have been Al.
Yeah, and like done their journey, or in like their perspective of their friend's journey through their lens instead of hopping back and forth because it creates a mess.
Right. But it also would have given us a better insight into Birdy himself.
Yeah, I agree. Because Al loved him. Like, like Al, through all of their fights, all of their disagreements, through everything, Al loved him.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like I said, that's why I said, like, when we were talking about it, it's like, I didn't hate this movie. No. There were parts that made me want to love it, but in the end, it's just kind of messy.
Yeah.
On the outer edges. The acting was fantastic, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's more of like an execution problem. It's not, but it has nothing to do with the performances. And it speaks to him as a director that he got those performances because they are really pretty great. And I think the shots of Birdy in the hospital, all of those like late night shots are really, really well done. That sense of isolation that it creates is very, very effective.
I totally agree.
It's just, I don't know, like I said, it could be a script or an editing problem, but I just really struggle to kind of stay with the movie in some places.
I was with you 100%.
All right.
Cage Line. Would you like to go first?
It's up to you.
Yeah, go first. Go first.
All right, here we go. Now this speaks to the excellent writing of this film, like the lyrical nature of the dialogue.
Okay.
Mammary glands. Mammary glands? No, we're talking tits here. Big tits, round tits, fleshy tits, full tits.
I could have never delivered that line. I couldn't have. We did tell everybody there's a lot of boob in this movie.
Yay.
Mine is a little less than that. It's maybe life is shitty. It is shitty. I'll tell you something. I'm not trying to pin life anymore. I don't even fucking understand it. I just want to make it through with some dignity like everybody else. I do love how you and I just unconsciously picked the opposite spectrum, so that's good.
We sure did. And I think it speaks to Nic Cage, right? That he pulled off both of those lines.
This movie goes everywhere. Okay, so now we have to put it in a category, and we have to rank it. I will give my category first, since you were so gracious to deliver your mammary glands line.
You're welcome.
My category is the Fortunate Son Nic Cage fan.
Oh, that's a good one. I went way more literal, but that's a very good one.
Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Ranking. I'm just pulling up the doc because I forgot I need to rank this. I haven't thought about it. Okay. Oh wait, that's the Here's Johnny ranking doc. Ranking. Yes, there we go. So I went with, and like I said, I went a little more literal with this because I was thinking, like, who needs to watch this?
Okay.
And I think the person who needs to watch this is the Nic Cage Oscar winner scholar. So, like, if you're someone who wants to pick, like, if you're the adventure that you're choosing on the Nic Cage journey is, I want to see how he became this version of Nic Cage, the one of his many personalities, and I think this is an important signpost on that road.
I could not agree with you more. Now we have the hard job. Our current rankings are Pig and The Rock. 1, 2. Okay. They both have asterisks for now. Mm-hmm. Then we go Valley Girl, Family Man, Racing with the Moon, Prisoners of the Ghostland, The Best of Times, and Cotton Club.
Okay. I think I know.
If I were to place it, personally, I think I would put it above Valley Girl.
Whoa, okay.
But that is more because I do really like the really emotional, open relationship between Modine and Cage. And it might be because Modine's in it too, and seeing them play off each other, because I do love Matthew Modine. But that's where I'm like inclined. Where do you think it should go?
See, I was thinking, I didn't think you would put it past The Family Man because I know how much you love that.
I do love that movie. I do.
And I think that to me, I was thinking how like this thing is essentially like another version of a less good version of Racing with the Moon, because I think that one hits better. But the reason we dinged it was because he was a smaller part in the
100%.
film, whereas this one, he is a co-lead.
Yep.
So to me, I was thinking, and I would be willing to go wherever you want. Like, I think he's really great in this. I think this is his best performance that we've seen of vintage Cage.
Yes.
Obviously, Pig is his best performance. But, like, a vintage Cage, this one's the best one. So I would be okay with it going to
Where
the
would
number
you
3
put it?
spot.
Where were you thinking of putting it?
I was initially thinking I would put it between Family Man and Racing with the Moon. Like, above Racing with the Moon, under Family Man.
How do you feel compromising and putting it below Valley Girl but above Family Man?
I totally accept this.
We
this
are
works
a
great for
democracy here.
Yeah, but I this feels right to me.
I agree. Like I said, I think I am talking about it and like finding out a lot of things that answer a lot of my questions makes me feel a lot better about it.
Yeah,
but,
and I think he is above reproach in terms of his performance.
Oh yeah, I said even like Pig is. We already discussed Pig, but
I mean,
I think this is without a doubt, even with The Rock, which I do love. I think this is his best performance besides Pig.
Yeah, I mean, listen, The Rock, we're not there for his acting chops. Like, that is a charisma performance, and he brings the charisma times 10. Whereas this one, he brings this is the thespian version of him.
I love the way you break it down. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap this up, and then we're going to head into the closing. Okay, so we need to do some talking and planning. We can do it through messaging or whatever, but the next episode is going to be The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Hell yeah, I'm so hype. I can't wait.
It's going to be our first Cage review, going to the theater to see a Cage movie.
Yes.
I'm very, very excited. Tentatively, we have The Boy in Blue as the next episode, which is it's 1986, so it's like the next one in line. And we were talking about not wanting to skip over, like, or to do all the gems at once.
Right, it's tempting, but we can't do it. We must
be strong. So
I
have a question.
Uh-oh. What is it?
Do you want to do, like, one of the newer-ish ones that, like, would just be a really funny review? I'm thinking G-Force.
Oh, that's right. He's a voice in that, isn't he?
He is one of the gerbils.
For our 1 year anniversary, we're gonna do G-Force
or something like that. Like one of the newer ones that's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like we could talk about we could do like Left Behind.
Ooh. Yeah.
That way we leave the 90s like for very, very special occasions.
Yeah, because I mean, like there's a handful of moderns, obviously, but the peak is that there's that window of the 90s. But we're like getting through the 80s. You know what happens after the 80s, right? The 90s. And we're already into 1986. We're like halfway through the 80s at this point. So it's about to be all 90s all the time.
Yeah, and there are a couple of interesting ones I thought we could do, but I the more you say it, I think that the 90s, like that's going to be a very special time when we go through it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I also think like we want to save those for like specials. Like if we have so much
I also don't want to lose sight of the progression, right?
That's
like
That's a good point.
I want to see them in context. Like if we had watched this thing out of context, we probably would have a different perspective on it.
Rachel, we're not skipping this. The cover is Nic Cage with 5-pound weights oiled up with a bandana.
This Boy in Blue thing? I thought it was going to be another like a military sad Nic Cage eyes.
The story is based on the true story about the life of Toronto scholar Ned Hanlon.
Okay.
So it's a rowing movie.
What? Oh, we are not.
Yeah, we'll do that.
This is like peak sexy Cage, and he's gonna be rowing. Oh, we are not skipping that.
Yeah, it is a film about Carew. So okay, we'll stick with it. Oh man, that's gonna. You never know what's coming next, but yeah, so that's our next 2 episodes. Did we have any emails?
We do not.
Okay, perfect.
We do not have any Yes.
So as always, if you want to submit some Nick Cage artwork, send it our way. We'll use it for the show art. If you have any emails, send it our way too. We are contacted at niccage@zombiegrrlz, grrlz.com. We've gone long and we haven't even gotten into the extended.
No, but we can do the extended like a little shorter.
Oh no,
okay.
I need this kind of cathartic release.
Okay.
It's been a week, and plus when people listen to this, because we'll be editing down some of the stuff, it won't be as long.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, that's all I got. Rachel, any last thoughts?
Just I can't wait to get my eyes on Nick Cage coxswain. That's all. What? It's a rowing term.
I know. That's why I laugh. Everyone, thanks for hanging out, and make sure you head to the theaters to see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. We can't wait to discuss with you.
Cannot wait.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
So, for our forcenings from last month, we both chose movies.
Yes.
I had to watch.
And I definitely watched mine on time and did not delay the podcast because I totally forgot to do it because my brain is garbage.
I will go first because it's been a long time coming for me with this movie.
Yes. Okay. All right. Hold on. I gotta steel myself. I need to get my endoskeleton strong because I'm afraid you're gonna say sad things.
I have never seen the Terminator or any of the Terminator movies.
Okay.
So Rachel had me watch the OG. Mm-hmm. It was really good.
Yeah!
I did not realize that Arnold was a bad guy.
Yes! He's the Terminator.
Well, I thought he was a good guy. I thought he fought the Silver
T2.
Surfer dude.
That's T2.
And so that's how I was basing it on. I was a little bit concerned because I thought that your guy Bean.
Yes.
Thought that was
Kyle Reese.
Thought that was her kid.
Right, because you knew the name Kyle, or you knew the name Kyle Reese,
yeah,
right?
so I thought that was her kid, and then there was the love scene, and I was like, oh my god, but that wasn't what it was.
No. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, logically, time-wise. How did John Connor exist?
Yeah.
But who cares?
But
it's
Terminator.
It
was so much fun. A lot of the special effects, because I've watched Aliens now with you. You can see how Cameron got better at what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
You could tell he was really trying to push what was capable back then.
Yes.
And some of the CG, some of the effects don't work well. It doesn't look like Arnold at certain points when he's working on himself in the mirror. In particular, is one of the scenes.
Yeah.
But it's a super great movie. It's got a lot of action without a lot of gore. Even a lot of brutal action without that gore.
Yeah.
I dug it. I thought it was a great time. I was actually really bummed out because T2 isn't on Amazon, so I'll have to rent it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel like it's the best. Me, I'm a Terminator OG fan, but a lot of people like the second one.
I thought it was great. I thought one of the things I liked is I know we've talked about in several different locations. Seems to be a theme. Is that
we did hang out everywhere?
Yeah, is that what's his face? Cameron. He is a big fan of a female protagonist who gets stronger as the film progresses. Yes. And you can see him working on that here. Because Sarah...
Wait till you see her in T2.
Yeah, because Sarah Connor is very vulnerable. She's very timid. She's very weak. Even more so than, what Ripley was established. But you can see that he's trying to take her on a journey to make her stronger. And I like that. I've got plenty of movies of guys growing, right? And I think I really enjoy it, I think it's a really interesting thing that James Cameron does because not a lot of directors do that. But I liked everything about it. There's a lot of actors who like surprised me seeing, like the guy from Gremlins who was the gun shop owner.
Yep, a lot of great character actors in it.
Yeah.
Did you see Baby Bill Pullman?
Yes, I did at the very beginning. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I saw that too. And it was just, I thought that this was a really fun movie. It's another one that I'm kicking my butt that I haven't seen it before. Devin's even like, you really haven't seen this? I was like, no. I'm excited because most of what I knew pop culture-wise, obviously, was coming from the second one. Because I was waiting for like the lava pit to show up. I was waiting for the Silver Surfer. I remember in my head there's like a bike chase scene through like a river divot or something.
Yep, that's T2.
So I will be watching T2.